As I watch the disintegration of these democratic cities, the way that their schools have gone into a tailspin, the escalating crime rates, one question that I ask is, are Democrats okay with this? These are the Democrats who are keeping these authorities in office, the mayor, the district attorney, and so are Democrats happy to be living in this kind of cesspool that we now call San Francisco, or that we now call LA? Well, there are some signs that Democrats are kind of waking up. I mentioned a couple of days ago on the podcast the San Francisco school board recall. 3 leftists on the school board yanked by margins of over 70%, in which basically dyed-in-the-wool Democrats, including, by the way, a lot of ethnic Democrats, decide it's time to give these people the boot. Good news. Well, here's some good news out of LA. There is a big move now to recall the district attorney. This is George Gascon. This is a guy who has essentially alienated the entire, and I mean the entire, law enforcement community. There's a statement just come out from the Los Angeles Association of Deputy District Attorneys. And more than 9 out of 10 LA prosecutors, according to a survey conducted by this group, approve the recall. They want this guy out. And the head of the group is talking about why. This is a guy named Eric Siddle. He goes, "It has been 1 year of Gascon's social experiment, an experiment that he says has been, quote, a miserable failure." I'm now just going to quote from this guy, Eric Siddle, because it sort of describes not just what George Gascon is doing in LA, but what we've seen in New York, what we've seen in St. Louis, what we've also seen in San Francisco. And I'm happy to say also that Chesa Boudin, the DA in San Francisco, is also facing a recall. So it's going to send a message that these Soros-backed DAs, these far-left DAs, are alienating even the Democratic constituencies that put them into office. So back to Eric Siddle, vice president of this group called the Los Angeles Association of Deputy District Attorneys. He goes, quote, "One of the first things Gascon did was to create a set of directives, in other words, internal rules that DAs are supposed to follow, and some of these rules directly contradicted California state law. So, for example, one rule, he says, is we could not file strikes pursuant to the 3 strikes law. So California has, 3 strikes and you're out. But according to Gascon, don't do that. Don't identify the strikes so we don't get to 3. So essentially, Gascon is unilaterally repudiating an existing California law. And Siddle continues, and the 3 strikes law is a mandatory law. It's something that prosecutors don't have the discretion to ignore. A second violation, says Siddle, is Gascon's alleged order for prosecutors to dismiss existing charges that he, Gascon, personally disagreed with. So even though there are charges filed, and they're filed by local DAs, Gascon goes, I don't like that one. I don't really think that's, so you drop it. Now, this is again, according to Siddle, he continues, whole sections of the penal code are no longer enforceable. He goes, and this is a serious problem. We can't just void sections of the law. In effect, what he's doing is making things legal by not enforcing them. So again, Gascon has become sort of on his own discretion, deciding, this law, I think we're going to apply that one. I don't think we're going to. And so all of this, by the way, these are not like random errors that fall on both sides of the net. Gascon is essentially the criminal's favorite DA, and he is the crime victim's ultimate nightmare. So this is a guy that is bad news. It's just the sheer stupidity of the Democratic voters that put him into office. It is the slow process of realizing just how bad he is. A lot of times people don't realize right away because, you know what? My home wasn't robbed. My car wasn't broken into. Nobody stuck a knife in my back. So it takes a lot of victims to be shrieking out there for the ordinary guy to finally pay attention and go, well, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have voted for this guy. It's time to recall him. So this is the Democrats, I would say, very gradually waking up, sleepily pulling themselves out of their beds and recognizing that some of the people that they've put in office are downright bad guys.